Well, what is going on, gang? Welcome back to A Therapeutic Edge. Very nice to have you here today. I've got something on the table today from the folks at Vosteed. This was on sale recently, so I picked one up. This is their Vanchor, V-A-N-C-H-O-R lock. It is a pivot lock. I have another one of those coming up. This is the Aries from Orion Knives, also a pivot lock. Done differently, though. We'll get to that later. This is a very cool knife. I like it. It's heavy, but it's got some features that are absolutely worth talking about. So let's do that. First and foremost, it's an LMAX blade, and I really like LMAX steel. It's not the most rust-resistant steel on the planet, so it will take color, but my experience with LMAX is that it holds an edge really well, and it is an excellent knife steel, and it's unusual to find in a relatively budget-friendly knife. These are about $170. You get aluminum scales, you get steel liners, you get their Vanchor lock, which, as you can see, is activated in the pivot, which is neat. You get 3 forms of deployment. You can flick it, you can top flip it, you can drop it, which of course is always really good, or you can just use the flipper tab if you don't miss. It's got a reversible pocket clip, and that means that with this lock mechanism, it is truly an ambidextrous knife. It looks like the body screws look to be, is that T8? Let's find out. This is a pivot tool, a tool from the folks at Off Grid. This thing is amazing. All right, let's see. So let's pull out the T6 first and see what that grabs a hold of. That will be, so part of the locking mechanism, there are 2 little screws on the back side of the pivot. Those are T6s, but these are clearly T8. Yeah. So everything is T8, including, yeah, so the pivot, of course, you have to release these. Anyway. What an interesting knife. I'll put a link to this in the description. This is a very cool tool. I like new stuff. I like companies that try new things. Pivot locks are sort of the rage right now. Riot's got one. Orion Knives has got theirs. Vosteed's got one. There's a bunch of companies doing them. What I don't love is overly complicated. So we'll see how this holds up over time. You know, what do I mean? Well, I'll use this. I know how to maintain my XM18. It's very simple. It's a very straightforward knife. It is not complicated in any way. Maintaining this is easy. Maintaining this is easy. Also, very simple, very straightforward. You do have to watch the omega springs. They can break. They generally don't. I've watched videos with broken springs. I've never had a problem. With new tech, you don't know. So obviously there is a pivot with some sort of housing that holds the actual knife blade, and inside that housing, I'm guessing, is a spring of some sort that activates the release. So this button is down. It's depressed when the knife is locked shut, and there is, you can hear it, right? There's a detent. You pop that open and it pops out. Got a little bit of wiggle to it. When you close it, right, it goes back to the way it was. That means that you are compressing a spring when you lock the knife. How long that will last is something we will all find out together. All right, let's talk about the rest of the knife. It's very nice. It is. Please understand, I'm not coming down on this thing. It's been a great carry. It's very comfortable. Got a nice forward choil. It's got a great sort of sheep's foot blade. We'll just see how the lock holds up over time. All right, so you get 2 3/4 inches of cutting on just 3.2 inches of that LMAX steel. I do like LMAX, and I really do appreciate that for this. The grip area, of course, is where this thing shines because there's no flipper, right? So, I mean, no big overt flipper. It does have a little tiny flipper, but it doesn't get in the way. So you pretty much have the whole knife, but the most obvious is first this grip, and from there we are looking at 3.5 inches. If we come forward to that choil in the front, which you can, it is useful, you're looking at 5 inches, right? And the knife overall from tip to tail coming in just shy of 7 3/4, right? Closed length. Looks to be just a little over 4.5. It's not a big knife. It is a very comfortable knife. It feels very sturdy in hand. The steel liners inside the aluminum scales do that. And if you look, I'm not sure you're going to be able to see that, but the aluminum is milled out to allow for the steel liners to be inset, and it's milled out additionally too. I'm not sure if any of that's going to show up on, yeah, forget it. Anyway, there's a lot of work going on in this. The milling on the outside, the milling on the inside, jimping, it's well done. And that explains the $170 price tag. Some of you may struggle to spend $170 on a Vosteed knife. They kind of made their name in the market with kind of more budget-friendly stuff, but I get it with this. I really do. Let's do some size comparisons. Here it is against a full-size Griptilian. And as you can see, they have a very similar sort of Warncliffe-y thing going on there. You get a little more cutting and a little more handle on the grip, but size-wise, they're very similar. How about the Kershaw Iridium? This, of course, I just got. This is in M390 and carbon fiber, but if you're familiar with the Iridium, you can see that it's very similar in size to the Ankylo as well. And of course, our old friend, the Bug Out, which is just a little bit smaller, not too bad. I'm fumbly tonight. It happens. It's been a long work week. And then finally, something new to the collection that I'm just really enjoying using is my tiny knife. This is the half track, the Hinderer half track. It is a little tiny thing, isn't it? Yeah. So, it's not an enormous knife. It's not a small knife. Where it is kind of chunky is through the handle. So let's zero that out and leave it in inches. Yeah, so it's comfortably over 1/2 inch. Now it is relatively slab-sided. There's a little, it's milling and stuff, but it's relatively slab-sided. So it is just over 1/2 inch, as you can see, which is fairly large, actually, for a knife like this. The in-the-pocket profile is very good. It's deep carry clip, but it's positioned fairly low on the knife, which is always kind of a bummer. They did that because they have this back screw holding in the barrel spacer back here. It does have a spot for lanyards if you do that sort of thing. I've had this now for a few weeks. It has been in and out of my pocket. I have used it in the garden. I have used it for my daily carry. So far, the aluminum is holding up really well. I was concerned when I first got it because I was afraid that maybe this kind of light blue-gray aluminum was going to show a lot of scarring, but so far, nothing, which is very cool. Let's weigh it. It's hefty. I mean, it feels hefty in hand. I'm not really sure what that's going to like how that's going to play out. I'm still figuring out this new mat. There we go. Almost 5 ounces. Yeah, for less than 3 inches of cutting, 5 ounces is a hefty knife. I'll give you an example. Blade Banter's Aries here from Orion Knives is 4.3. You know, yeah. It's just, I don't know, it's got a hefty feel to it. Anyway, the Ankylo it's a good knife. It's good steel. It's an interesting locking mechanism. It's got lots of deployment options and methods, and it's great and fidgety and all that stuff. It isn't my favorite knife. I don't know why exactly. I think it's just, oddly enough, I think it's the weight. If I'm going to carry a knife that feels this bulky, I'm going to carry something like that. Right? Where are we on that? Let's find out. So an XM18 with a full-size blade, not the skinny, but a full-size XM18 with a tie scale is 6.1. So it's an ounce more than this in aluminum. This should outweigh this by a lot. But because they have to do the steel liners on the inside of those aluminum scales, you just pick up a ton of weight. Anyway, it's a good knife. Don't get me wrong. If you have ordered one, you are going to be happy. If you're thinking about ordering one, go ahead. You're going to be happy. It's just not my favorite, and that's cool. Anyway, this is the Vosteed Ankylo in LMAX, which is very cool. It's aluminum. It is running on bearings on the inside of that interesting Vanchor lock. I hope you've enjoyed this look at it. I've enjoyed having it. I'll continue to enjoy having it. Feel free to ask any questions down in the comments below. And remember, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.